Hi guys, I am so sorry. I do not have for you a mini Monday or any kind of cash stuffing for a while. And the reason for that is yours truly, Grandma, didn't plan well. We have about 6 inches of snow outside, and we have about 3 days of subarctic weather coming up. And although I have cash here, it's all big bills. So I don't have enough small bills to be able to do what I need to do. And I didn't go to the bank to get smaller bills. And I am not going out in this weather. Sorry, we're gonna have sub-zero in the negative wind chill for the next 3 days, and I'm gonna hunker down. So instead, I had a subject, as you can tell from the thumbnail, that I've been wanting to discuss for a while, and I thought I would do that with you. Now, first, let me start out by saying, should you take the advice of someone who took Social Security at 62 with no savings? Absolutely not. And this is not my advice type situation. What it is that I have thought about, and I'll go more into this in detail, but I've thought about, what if I had done things differently? And that's all this is about. This is maybe a cautionary tale, and, take it for that. But I am not about to tell you what you should do. You should seek financial advice from somebody who is educated and has experience in that field. So take this as a cautionary tale and me just kind of thinking about ways that I could have done things differently. And while I'm doing that and yapping at you, I will do a time lapse of this piece that I'm working on. If you remember, I'd done what we call a green man, or a woodland person, whatever you want to call it. And this is it. And I'm doing it as a triptych, and I have 2 more panels that I'm working on. This is the second one. And I decided that I didn't want just green men. We got to work some females into this. So I started working on this recently. And that's what I'm going to be trying to finish up. It's a very, very, very long process, but I'm trying to finish up this little woodland lady. And I'll go ahead and I'll do this in time lapse, because it really does take forever to do the smallest thing. So I'll talk over that while I do it, and hope you can enjoy me working on this and maybe get a little something out of the subject matter as well. Okay, so here we go. The impetus for this video was something that's been coming up on my YouTube recommendations. I'm a zero-based budgeter, which means that my income minus my expenses equals zero. Every penny and every dollar I have coming in is given a job. It's a mindful way of controlling my money. And this is an idea that was made popular by Dave Ramsey. Because of that, I guess YouTube is recommending some of his videos to me, and lately the ones that have been recommended to me are the ones where people call in and say, hey, I'm 55 or 60 or whatever age, and I haven't saved anything for retirement. What can I do? Well, that was me most of my life. As a single parent from 1993 through 2011, most of the burden of caring for my children fell on me. That made savings tough, and I realize now that it wasn't impossible, and I wish I had been a zero-based budgeter all of those years. I did follow a zero-based budget twice, and each time it was for the purpose of saving money to buy a home, but I never continued it, and I wish I had. And that brings me to the subject of this video. I think at some point everyone has played the game, if only I could go back and change things, knowing what I know now. You think about what you would have done differently. And just very quickly, let's touch on the subject of regret. So many times I hear people proudly say, I don't have any regrets, to which I say, BS. Personally, I think that in a life that is full of decisions,
It's almost impossible to avoid regrets. No one makes all the right choices throughout their entire life. So I don't think it's a bad thing, and I think it's an opportunity for personal growth if you have regrets. Learn from it and make changes. You have to make peace with your regret, however, and don't hold on to it. So going back to the idea of doing things differently if you could go back in time, and we've all played with that idea, haven't we? And I think most of us, especially those of us who are parents, realize that making different decisions at different periods in our lives would have resulted in an entirely different life and not necessarily for the better. I would never wish not to have my kids. But if the only change you made in your life was a financial one, you could go back and you could make a change in your financial life to make your situation better, would you do it? So let's first look at the recommendations Dave Ramsey makes to those people who call in and say, I'm so many years old and I haven't saved a thing for retirement. Dave, what do I do? And Dave shares his baby steps. The first is to save $1,000 for your emergency fund. The second is to pay off all your debt except your house. Third is save 3 to 6 months of expenses to create a fully funded emergency fund. Fourth, invest 15% of your income towards retirement. Fifth is to save for a college fund for your children if you have them. And sixth, pay off your home. And seventh, finally, build wealth. And another way of looking at it is what you see is what's called the FIRE movement, F-I-R-E, which stands for Financial Independence, Retire Early. And you're thinking, well, wait a minute. If I'm 55 or 60, the idea of retiring early is a moot point. And it is, but the idea about Dave Ramsey's baby steps and the FIRE movement remains the same. You take the tactics of becoming intensely focused on budgeting and saving to apply it to your current situation. And now is when I'm going to take myself as an example. I thought back to when I was 55 and what my financial situation was at that time. At that time, I was an empty nester. I lived in a 3-bedroom, 2.5-bath townhome that I had just purchased a couple years earlier. I was working at a law firm, making good money, and had pretty darn good benefits. The only other debt I had besides my home was a car loan and a small credit card balance. I had my $1,000 emergency fund in place and a small fund for home maintenance, but besides that, I had no savings to speak of. I think I may have had a couple $1,000s in my 401k, but I wasn't very good about contributing to it. So if we apply Dave Ramsey's steps or the FIRE movement steps, and they're basically the same thing, to my particular situation, here's what I could have done. In order to get myself in the best financial shape possible to retire with a decent retirement account, I either needed to reduce my expenses or increase my income or both. One other good thing about the situation I was in at that time was that I was renting a room in my home to a roommate. And I was lucky enough to have found a great roommate who had no plans to leave anytime soon. And even if they did, I was in a geographic area which was really desirable to renters. So the income I made from the renter was nearly half my mortgage payment. Let's say at that time I made a plan to retire at my full retirement age of 67. That meant I had 12 years to get things pulled together. If I used the amount I was receiving from rent and applied it, and let's say just another $100 to the principal of my mortgage, the house would have been paid off in 10 years or a couple of years before I planned to retire. And that's not even taking into account the reduction in my mortgage that would have happened when I no longer had to pay for PMI, private mortgage insurance. With the income I was making after taxes, if I cut my expenses to the bare minimum, I would have had about $750 left for discretionary spending. So first let's talk about retirement savings. My employer matched my 401k contributions 50 cents on the dollar up to 5% of my annual income. For me, that meant they would have contributed about $2,600 per year into my 401k. And in order to get that max benefit, I would have had to contribute $5,200 myself per year. That would be about $430 per month of my money. Also, based on the steps by Dave Ramsey and the FIRE movement, I should be saving 15% of my income. For me, that would have been about $7,800 per year, which comes out to $650 a month. So if 430 of that was going into my 401k every month, so I could get that matching from my employer, and the other 120 went into some other retirement vehicle. That would be the 15% or $7,800 per year, plus the $2,600 per year of matching, and that from my employer, and that would make a total of $10,400 per year going directly into retirement savings. Now, let's say that retirement savings plan earns a modest 5% over the 12 years I have until retirement. The calculator I used said that I would have a little over $170,000 in retirement by the age of 67. That's not taking into account any pay increases I would have gotten over those years, which could be applied to savings. If I was able to get a return of 8% instead of 5% on my savings, that total would be around $208,000 by the time I retired at age 67. Now, let's look at debt payoff. I would have still had my car and my house. Of the $750 I had left in discretionary spending, we said that I was putting $650 of that towards savings, which only leaves me with another $100 that I can put towards extra debt repayment. So if I put that all on the car, which I had only had about a year at that point, and my payment was about $450 a month. Ouch. If I paid the extra $100 per month to the principal of the car, I could have had it paid off in 4 years. Once it was paid off, I could roll over that $550 a month, the $450 of my normal payment, plus the $100 I was going to pay into principal, and take that and add it to the house. And if I did that, the house could be paid off a couple years earlier. Before I had said it would be paid off in 10 years. It could be paid off in 8 years. So there I would be at 62 with a paid off house and a paid off car. I'd still have a roommate paying me rent. I would continue to live frugally for the next 5 years that was remaining until I retired at 67, and invest that amount of the mortgage that I was making and no longer had to make, the car payment that I no longer had to make, plus the rent I had coming in, and put it all towards more savings. I will have added another $160,000 to my savings, and I would retire at 67 with somewhere between $330,000 and $370,000 in savings retirement, depending on what the rate of return was on it. In addition, I'd have a mortgage-free home that had increased in value. And I just checked the other day, and that home that I had at that time has now increased in value to about $400,000. So that's a home worth $400,000 that I owed nothing on. I could have sold it and moved to a smaller place, paid cash for it, maybe even had some money left over. And finally, instead of the $1,700 I currently receive in Social Security, I'd be receiving something like $2,200 per month. So there you go. Even at the age of 55 with no money saved for retirement, if I had budgeted like I do now and focused hard at it for 12 years, that's how my situation would be different. Regrets? Well, sure, but it's not something I dwell on. I'm doing the best with what I have and I'm enjoying life. But if you're watching this and you are in a situation right now where you're 55 or 60 and you have no money saved for retirement, if you're healthy and able to continue working until you reach full retirement age, there's a heck of a lot you can do to put yourself in a better financial position when you retire. Run the numbers for your situation, and then sit down with a financial consultant to create a game plan. Almost every bank has someone you can talk to for free. And yes, they'll try and convince you to use their products, but you don't have to if you don't want to. Or you can hire an independent financial advisor and consider it money well spent in order to stop worrying about your financial future. And again, I'm not the person you should be listening to about financial advice. All this is just a sort of a mental game of wondering, well, what could I have done differently? And also a cautionary tale that, you don't have to continue down the road. If you think it's hopeless when you're 55 and you have no money saved, it's not hopeless. This is just an example. Just take your numbers and run them and see whether or not, as much as you might desire to retire at the age of 62, if you can put it off until you're 67, and you can focus very, very closely on what it is that you can do with your money and save and cut back and be very mindful and present in how you are taking care of your money, you could end up retiring in a really good situation, not have to look at Section 8 housing, have a paid for home, and be in a position where you can do a lot more than I can right now. And again, I'm not complaining. I'm happy with where I'm at. I think that things happened for me in the best way that they possibly could given my situation. And I don't wake up every morning saying, oh my gosh, I wish it could be different. It is what it is, and it isn't bad. But could it have been better? Hell yeah. And I could have made it different. So don't think that you can't make things happen differently for yourself. Anyway, I hope this has helped. I hope that some of the information that I've shared with you will maybe make you stop and think. And for those of you who are young and are on this path, good for you. Keep at it. And I will talk to you guys in the next video, which will finally be a cash stuffing video. I'll finally have change from the bank and be out of the subarctic weather, and I'll be able to share some more of that with you. And I will share with you how this particular project that I'm working on ends up. Okay? Thank you. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody.